Well, hi everyone. Today's cloud environment is fast-paced. One of the primary goals for most organizations is to be ready to handle emerging threats and build a strong security culture. Does your organization have a solid security plan for 2024? In this session, David and I will talk about the top security announcement from AWS reInvent and how they can help you stay ahead of emerging security risk. My name is Even Sedun. I'm a solution architect with Amazon Web Services. I work with our public sector customers and nonprofit organization. And David and I have deep security discussion with customers to ensure that they are prepared. So what you are going to get out of the presentation today is, first, we are going to talk about what AWS reInvent is all about. Then we will discuss 5 security trends we are seeing in this ever-changing cloud domain. And for each security trend that we will talk about, we will also introduce an announcement from AWS reInvent that will help you address that trend. For those of you who might not know, AWS reInvent is a learning conference hosted by AWS for the global cloud computing community. The in-person event features keynote announcements, training and certification opportunities, 2,000 plus technical sessions, and so much more. During the 2023 edition held in Las Vegas, top security announcements were made to help organizations stay ahead of security risk. We will be diving into this here. By the way, this year reInvent will be hosted from December 2nd to December the 6th, in case you plan to attend. So let's now cover each security trend with the reInvent announcement that support your response to the trend. And the first security trend that we are seeing is deeper visibility and better context around threats. The goal of deeper visibility and better context around threat is to help IT and security teams spot suspicious behavior as quickly as possible and minimize the extent of a breach. Organizations today are always striving for better visibility and context around threats in their environments. AWS does have tools to detect threats, but we know that threats are getting more complex. And because of that, we need better visibility and even more information to help our chief security officers or security leaders understand the nature of the threats that they encounter. So one of the ways AWS is addressing this visibility concern is through the announcement of Amazon Guard Duty Runtime Monitoring, which is an expansion of Amazon Guard Duty that introduces runtime threat detection for Elastic Compute Cloud, Amazon EC2 workloads, and Amazon Elastic Container Service, ECS workloads. And this includes the serverless container workloads that are running on AWS Fargate. With Guard Duty, ECS, and EC2 runtime monitoring, customers get a fully managed runtime threat detection for EC2 workloads and your serverless container environment. This makes it easier for security and infrastructure teams to coordinate the onboarding and maintenance of their security coverage. Now, no matter where you run your EC2 workloads or AWS managed container workloads, you have full runtime threat detection visibility. Guard Duty, ECS, and EC2 runtime monitoring can be enabled with a few steps in the Guard Duty console and is compatible with AWS organizations, allowing you to centrally enable runtime threat detection coverage for accounts and workloads across the organization. Guard Duty ECS runtime monitoring is now available in AWS regions where Guard Duty is available, excluding the Gulf Cloud regions and the China regions. Guard Duty EC2 runtime monitoring is currently in preview in all AWS regions where Guard Duty is available, excluding Gulf Cloud regions and China regions. Next, another area that we see security trends is Gen AI. With the significant shift to generative AI applications and workloads, there is a real need to understand data protection and make sure that customer data is protected, to ensure that personal identifiable information are secured, and also to protect users from harmful content and organizations from sensitive topics that the generative AI models will be referencing. And so on the new features announced, there is guardrails for Bedrock. That includes guardrails for any foundation models. And that is very important because previously you have to build that functionality into the model. So let's dive into guardrails for Amazon Bedrock. Using guardrails for Amazon Bedrock, you can promote safe interactions between users and your generative AI applications by implementing safeguard customized to your use cases and responsible AI policies to any foundation model. As foundation models are trained with vast amounts of data, they can potentially respond to malicious queries and generate objectionable and harmful responses. While some foundations models have built-in measures to prevent the generation of harmful responses based on certain responsible AI principles, such protection mechanisms are model-specific and cannot be tailored for an organization. In addition, customers using multiple foundations models for different tasks do not get a consistent and configurable protection layer. So guardrails for Bedrock provide content filters with configurable thresholds to filter harmful content across hate, assault, sexual, and violence categories. In addition, guardrails also support word filters to filter profane and customer configurable words that may be offensive or inappropriate for customers' use cases. And next, foundations models are incredibly powerful and they can respond to a wide variety of queries. But depending on the underlying training data, foundation models can generate responses that may not be relevant to the application or are potentially controversial to the organization. For example, let's take a travel booking company that is deploying a customer service chatbot. They will not want the chatbot to engage in questions about their competitors, pricing negotiations, emergencies. So with guardrails for Bedrock, customers can define a set of denied topics that are controversial or not desirable in the context of a specific application. And then, depending on the use case, customers use foundation models to process input containing personal identifiable information data and require the final output to redact the PII data to preserve privacy for the users. For example, a contact center application performing call summarization at the end of a call requires redaction of users' PII information prior to storing those information for record keeping. So guardrails for Bedrock support PII redaction to power generative AI application that can redact PII information in foundation model responses. In addition, guardrails for Bedrock can improve compliance in applications that are not expected to process any PII data. And it does that by detecting those PIIs in user inputs and blocking such inputs. Next, we will be talking about simplifying least privilege access, and I will turn it over to my colleague, David Marsh, to take over.
Excellent. Thank you, Evans. So the next trend that we're going to talk about is the need to simplify least privilege access and understand changes to your identity policies before they're deployed. As cloud workloads get more complex, so can the policies that manage access control for those workloads. This is encouraging organizations to find ways to streamline permissions changes. But one of the challenges of streamlining these processes is that you're more prone to missing critical policy changes that may grant more permissions than you intend. So how can you make these policy adjustments more quickly without sacrificing your least privilege controls? Well, one way that AWS is helping organizations do this is by the introduction of IAM custom policy checks. Now, you can see at a glance the changes that have been made to your custom IAM policies. And this lets you quickly understand whether your new policies meet your security standards before you actually deploy the changes. This means that you can more easily scale your policy reviews alongside your cloud workloads without having to compromise on the quality of your review. And this is made possible by automated reasoning, which gives you the mathematically provable assurance on what your policies will allow and will not allow. The next trend that we're seeing is a need to customize compliance controls. Organizations often need to adhere to these rigid compliance frameworks while also meeting internal compliance goals. And this can make it hard to use pre-configured security posture management tools since they don't take your unique organizational needs into account. We're seeing a need for customizable compliance controls so you can view your organization's compliance through the appropriate lens. At the same time, we're seeing that our customers don't want to manage their own sets of compliance controls themselves. So one of the things that AWS announced to help customers with this is Security Hub control parameters. AWS Security Hub is a security posture management service, and it's recently gotten quite a few new features. The one I wanted to focus on here is the control parameters feature that allows your organization to supply custom parameters to predefined compliance controls. So this allows you to tailor your security posture monitoring to your organization's specific needs. Now, one of the biggest benefits of this feature is that you don't have to manage these compliance controls yourself. You retain those benefits of managed controls and the scoring mechanisms that Security Hub already provides, but you get to set those parameters to values that are meaningful for your organization. Security Hub also has new central configuration capabilities, which means that you can configure these custom parameters in one place and then have them apply to multiple AWS regions and even multiple accounts and organizational units all at once. Now, the final trend that we'll cover today is a need to improve security processes for developers and introduce security earlier in the development lifecycle. We're seeing often that organizations who begin security reviews too late in that development lifecycle have a harder time with code-related security issues. So if you identify an issue at an automated testing stage, that means the developer may have already lost time by committing and pushing that code through your pipeline. So one new feature that aims to address this is Code Whisperer security scans. Code Whisperer is an AI code generator service that works in your IDE. And with the new Code Whisperer security scans, you can identify hard-to-find security vulnerabilities as you code. This includes static application security testing, secrets detection, and infrastructure as code scanning. Now, Code Whisperer will make recommendations for any security issue that's found, but in some cases, Code Whisperer can even generate replacement code that you can use to resolve that vulnerability directly. And currently, a range of popular programming languages are supported, including infrastructure as code languages like CloudFormation, Terraform, and AWS CDK. And this feature currently works in Visual Studio Code and JetBrains IDEs. Now, that covers just a few of the security trends that we're seeing now. And I wanted to share some next steps with you to help you improve your organization's security posture for 2024. I'll share these links in the Q&A functionality here shortly after we wrap up here. But the first one is a link to some documentation on the AWS well-architected framework security pillar. This is a set of best practice guidance to help you improve the security of your cloud workloads. In addition, I have a link here to some top announcements from AWS reInvent. So of course, today we only covered a very small subset of just some of the security announcements from reInvent. But in reality, there are many more announcements to learn about, including the topics of compute, databases, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and much more, including more security announcements to explore. So this link is to a blog post that highlights even more of those top announcements. And finally, if you have specific questions on security for your organization, you should engage your AWS account team. They can connect you with security experts to help you dive deep and develop a comprehensive security strategy for 2024. Now, that about wraps up what we wanted to cover with you today. So we wanted to say thank you again for taking the time to hear from us today. Thank you to Ron for having us here to speak. And we want to invite you to reach out or connect with us on LinkedIn if you have any more questions. So again, thank you so much, and I'll pass it back to Ron.